most
True.
of our restaurants and businesses are in the Middle East and back in India and Mauritius.
True.
We're live
True.
now.
So we
Okay.
are non-stop on the phone with our teams on all the restaurants, just to ensure that you can actually troubleshoot for them. Most of them have opened up into a delivery model right now, where they have
Sir.
deliveries going out to people in their homes.
Okay,
So
Chef,
it is a constant.
Chef, we are live now.
Okay.
Ruchin, are we live?
Yes, sir, we are live now. Good to
And
go.
Yes, we are live, sir.
We're good to go?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're good. We're good to go, sir.
Okay, so Chef Vineet Bhatia, welcome all the way from London. I see we already have an interesting group of people who have gathered to listen to you. The people, a mix of people from the industry and people who are just, I think, interested in listening to you. So welcome, Chef Vineet Bhatia, the first Indian to get a Michelin star. Let's give a big virtual applause to him. Chef is right now in London at his home. And Chef, why don't you start talking about your self-quarantine? You know, what is it like being at home? When anyone who knows you knows that you put in 16 hours a day. Even that sometimes is not enough.
No, I mean, in many ways, I have to really thank the quarantine that I've been able to stay at home for a while. You know, I've not spent so much time at home, maybe for the past 18 years, because I've been on a constant travel for work, for various restaurants. So this time actually gives you a good time to actually spend with my wife and my two boys, to be with them. And to actually, that quality time is very important. Although we may say quality time, we still do our work from our home. And I think it's important that we touch base with all our teams, all our 11 restaurants globally. So, you know, you're constantly on the pulse with them. You're onto the WhatsApp, you're into Zoom chats, and you are into all those conferences with them, just to ensure that things are being followed, things are being done. Staying at home also gives you the time to actually see what can be done sitting from home. So a lot of time also goes into doing video tutorials. So it started off more as something as a tutorial for one of our team members in one of our restaurants to do a short video to do a certain dish. And we said, why don't we post it off on social media, see how it works. And the people actually want to watch that. They want to see what do the chefs do at home and what you can do with stuff lying in your home. So the whole idea of doing these home tutorials is not about doing fancy food. It's about using things which are in your home during lockdown. So you're so limited with the resources that what can you do with a simple aloo or a piece of chicken breast or some chawal or some sabji. There is rationing of some many kind, because saman milta hai, saman nahi milta hai. So try and do things which are from your normal routine day of work, and how can you make it more interesting. So that actually worked quite well for us. And so we do a lot of tutorials, not just for Instagram and stuff, but also for our teams, and guide them through. So a lot of time we do the conference calls with our team members.
Some of your dishes have been absolutely, like, what I would say, basic. One would expect a chef of your class and style to even consider it. But you made those basic dishes look so tempting, you know, so eminently edible. You know?
The basic things always work well. But a lot of the chefs actually, or even home cooks, don't know the basics. So how to make a good simple raita at times, they won't realize कि कैसा बनता है, or how to do a simple aloo ki sabji, or even how to flip a pancake or an omelette, for example. You know, these are basic stuffs. I remember a tutorial on how to cut a piece of chicken breast, because at home all I had was which delivered was chicken breast, so no legs or no thighs. So how can you use a chicken breast in various cuts and various forms? And a normal person sitting at home sometimes doesn't realize that there's a lot you can do with those simple things and tips. And this is where we think we wanted to educate the people there and actually help them motivate. You know, everybody wants to do something at home and learn to cook, because you are homebound. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for people to just to experiment and try. So keep it simple, keep it easy, always works.
Right. Now, you know, already the people from the industry are, asking the big question, you know. What has been the impact of coronavirus on the industry? But, you know, before we go to that, you know, I wanted to ask you one thing. Some of your restaurants have opened already, haven't they? They were under lockdown,
Yes.
but they've opened in Dubai. I
Yes.
They opened in Mauritius. So what is it like opening a restaurant after, say, 30 or 40 days of lockdown in this new environment where social distancing norms and other rules, which are completely unheard of till 2 months ago, coming into play?
See, I mean, quarantine and lockdown has affected everybody across the board. I don't see one single industry or field which has not been affected in some shape or form. Everybody has got hit and has got hit very, very badly. How many will survive from this? Only time will tell. But I think we have to take the step and see what can we do. London hasn't relaxed the laws, so we can't open up here. But Dubai was the first ones to relax the laws and said with social distancing and all, you need to open up. So Dubai opened up and Saudi Arabia opened up. So Saudi Arabia, we got 3 restaurants, and Dubai, we got 1. So we got these 2 open up. Mauritius is a complete lockdown. Geneva opens up next week, only on a delivery model. But Indigo is the only one where we have in-house, we are allowing guests to come in. But even when we are opening up, it is not just aapne bol diya, humne khol diya restaurant. It takes us almost 3 to 4 days pre-planning to do the restaurant setup before you can open up.
Right.
So the team has to be got into work. And when the team comes into work, they are actually medically checked for clearance. Although they stay in the hotel accommodation, but that is still a distance away. So when they come to work, what we've done is we've got a very small amount of people who work in our restaurant there to come back to work. And they actually house in at the hotel. So they do not leave the hotel.
Right.
So they put up into the rooms in the hotel. All they do is they live there, they dine there, they stay there, they work there on rotation.
Right.
And obviously, when you work in the kitchen, when you have manning of 14, 15, they cut it down to literally 5 on rotation,
Right.
where they don't have to stand next to each other. So they're still at a 2-meter distance from working from each other. And then you have all the hand sanitizer, they come to work, they all check, their temperature checked and stuff like those. And also when it comes to the service side, the same applies to the service guys, the housekeeping people, everybody goes through the same kind of a process. Now, when it comes to the guest point of view, it becomes very awkward because you have guests coming in and then you have a receptionist wearing a face mask.
Right.
But that is the norm now. You can't take it off.
Because that takes away the
point
whole.
of contact,
Earlier it was all about being sort of close to each other, the touchy-feely, the human aspect of hospitality. That seems to be now gone forever, at least.
It is definitely gone for now till they have some kind of a vaccine which tells you that you are okay to survive. Till that vaccine doesn't come through, these methods are not going to go off. They are going to stay for a while.
Right.
And I think, fortunately, also most of the guests also realize that that's the fact of life. They can't take it off, and they will follow it. So they won't take it against you. But as a business, you really struggle because you open up literally with less than 50% occupancy.
Excuse me. I think, can I request members of the audience or Ruchin, can you please make sure everyone is on mute mode? A lot of disturbances coming online. Ruchin, can you hear me? Pawan, can you hear me?
Sure, I've done that.
Yes,
Have
sir.
you
I
done
can
that?
hear. Yeah, we've done that, sir. We've done that.
Yeah,
Please go
because I think there's too much of disturbance. Okay, sorry, Chef. So you're talking about, say your kitchen has been reduced from 15 to 5. Now, how do you manage to run a kitchen with 5 people?
Yeah.
A kitchen that used to earlier run with 15 people.
You basically trim down the offering. So you almost trim down your offering to 25 to 30% of what the normal menu was.
Right.
And you do things which are much more easier and simpler. So all the dishes where they had a few garnishes to go or towels to be done and all that stuff are out.
Right.
Because you want to make the food less fidgety and less fussy and more straightforward.
Right.
Because even the service which we are using now is actually disposable stuff. We're not using ceramics and we're not using metalware and all the stuff because we don't want to end up cleaning all the stuff. So all that stuff literally goes into the bin after it's done.
Okay.
So they're all disposables. So we have invested into kind of a somewhat fancy kind of a disposable ware where food can be still plated up and look nice.
Right.
At
So
the end, the guest is still
what is this
getting the service.
disposable material? that you've come up
These are
with?
like these are like those cardboards and all the stuff which are biodegradable stuff.
Right,
Is those kind of stuff. It's not even plastic. It's more like straight away which goes into biodegradable stuff.
right,
That
right,
always works well. I mean,
right,
plastic is totally out. We stopped using plastic, so it's all the
right,
takeaway boxes and the lids and all plastic is out. Cling films
right,
and everything is out. And that was
right,
done 2 years back. So no, that's not the picture. So everything is now biodegradable.
right,
Everything what we use is based on that.
right,
We've
right.
taken out all table because
Okay.
fabric is somewhere where you can actually get the viruses on.
Yeah.
So it's a plain, clean tabletops, all clear
Right.
off.
So you've got, tables without tabletops, tablecloths, you've got biodegradable, disposable crockery replacing existing crockery. You've got a lot of your,
Right.
say, maybe top items of your menu out because, they may be the fancier items of the menu. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's also issue with the supply chain because, you're not getting all the stuff which you all need all the time. So the what are the top and expensive stuff are obviously very limited down. And also what we have done is we have reduced our prices also
Right.
just to make sure that there is no wastage. There's enough for everybody. So things which have I would say a slightly longer shelf life
Right.
are going to be more in use. So all your expensive stuff like your scallops or your lobsters or your expensive fish, there's no point in having them because you will have wastage and perishable. It's going to go
Okay.
off. So
Okay,
things
so,
like those you have to
right.
take off the menu.
But that will
And you
affect
also got to realize that
that will affect the overall positioning of your restaurant, won't it?
yeah, it will affect, but at least we are open. I mean, you got to
Right.
realize like Grosvenor House or a hotel in Saudi,
Right.
it employs up to 5 people in a hotel. Grosvenor House got 2,500 employees within all
Wow.
these 4 hotels.
Right.
You have to keep the team also motivated at times. You got to keep them
Right.
occupied. So
Right.
we put them onto a rotation, so everybody comes to work on a rotation.
Right.
So not
Right.
all 15 are coming in. So you have 5 people coming in at a day. They work for a couple of days, and then the next 5 come in and stuff like that. So it is
Right.
enough for everybody to go into a cycle.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
everybody
Right.
feels part of being involved in that.
Right.
Pay cut. A lot of people have had to have pay cuts done because there is no other way to survive. So you all taken a drastic amount of salary reductions
Right.
just to ensure that we can still feed more people and
Right.
pay more people, but pay little
Yeah.
less. So at least their
Right.
houses are running back in India. So
Right.
that is very key, and that is the main thing with all our projects was how to retain our team members, how to retain our
So how many
people who
how
actually
many
stay
people
with
do you
us.
employ in Dubai? How many people are there on your staff?
Dubai, between the 2 restaurants, Indigo and India, around 80.
80. And
80.
and
I mean, you
they
got to
all
remember they are
you were able to
dishwashers.
you were able to retain their jobs. I mean, they were able to retain the jobs.
We at the moment, yes, we have retained them all. The hotel has a policy of retaining staff, and also if somebody wants to go back, they are very generous in terms of their closing pays and their notice periods and all that stuff. So they are quite fair and generous. I think Grosvenor
Right.
House is one of those hotels back in Dubai which are very fair in their dealing with their employees, and also being
Right.
part of the matter. They're very particular that they do
Right.
things correctly.
Hello.
So, I
Right.
mean, we are fortunate to actually able to partner with such hotels who have an understanding of human beings
Right.
and
Right.
not just take them for a ride. The issue is a lot of people in the smaller restaurants, they don't pay the staff.
Hello.
Right.
And they are
Right.
supposed to be terminating staff, which is very unfair
Right.
to them.
Right.
We don't want to be one of those.
Right.
We try to ensure that our core team, during good times and bad times, they're all with us.
Right. Right.
And it becomes our responsibility to ensure that we look after our team members.
Right.
Because eventually this will go. It's going to be a new world in the industry altogether. So we have to survive. And when we want to survive, we want to ensure that we are near the forefront with our team always. So they are going to make it bounce back.
That's right. That's right. In fact, there is one gentleman, young man. He's from D.Y. Patil College in Mumbai. Unfortunately, he's asking you for recipes. I'll have to tell Mr. Shubham Katare that the chef cannot share recipes on this program. But if you want, you can leave your email on the chat room, and he may get in touch with you in case he is interested. Shubham wanted a unique recipe of chicken in the main course and a starter, you know. I guess this is unfortunately on Tiffin Talks we cannot share recipes, but in case the chef is interested, he will write back to you. Or maybe send him links to some of the work you've done with chicken on your YouTube channel.
There's YouTube, there's Insta, there's so many channels, there's Google.
Right. Hello, Richard, there's again an audio problem here.
Request to all to please unmute the chef.
Yeah, he has been unmuted. He's been unmuted.
I request everyone to please be on mute so that the conference can go smoothly, please.
Okay, now a question from Sanjeev Thakur, and it concerns labor. So what Mr. Thakur is saying that, look, so far, say the GCC countries are always regarded as great opportunities for Indian cooks and Indian hospitality industry people to go and start their careers or develop their careers at, but now with the new travel restrictions and all sorts of, the issues that have come up, getting a job in the GCC countries is not going to be easy. So what are the prospects in India? How do they create a good prospect for themselves in India?
I mean, it is not just GCC. I think it's across the board all over the world, and not just GCC which got affected. GCC then during lockdown, they are all curtailing staff and all the stuff, and the same thing is happening in Europe, in the US, and also back in India. And I think what's important is wherever we are based, we have to try and ensure that we can deliver what we have. So in whatever small shape, means, and form, if we can get back onto our feet and open up into a small manner, at least get active in some way and look at opportunities of how we can actually do stuff. I know certain people back in India who are actually doing cooking at home on a model where they send food out. Or food gets picked up from their own homes. Like a dabba service or a tiffin service. So there are opportunities. There are opportunities where people are now on Zoom are doing cooking classes and charging money for that. So there is some kind of extra income coming from somewhere. So I think you have to be a little more enterprising yourself. You have to look at avenues where you can actually make some kind of an income if you're really struggling, because there are no jobs right now. Until this pandemic doesn't go, there's nothing going to happen. The lockdown is going to continue.
There are no new jobs happening.
There are no new jobs happening. So if you think that you can apply to the Middle East and get a job right now, there is no way, because there are no flights in the first place. People who are anyway there in most hotels in the Middle East are actually working on a very, very reduced salary, or sometimes even at no salary, sitting at home, sadly.
Right.
So I as an employer right now would be the last person looking to recruit staff. Because my main aim right now is to actually ensure the safety of my team members, and then I can ensure I can pay them. I'm not looking at
your advice is that you try to create new opportunities for yourself in the country. So
wherever you are, you have to. You have to try and maximize, look at options around you. Either you do any education, where you do online courses and stuff like those. But imagine the aviation industry, they can't fly. What are they going to do? Not just the pilots, they are the engineers, they're the ground crew, they're the flying crew, they're the check-in desk, they're the baggage handlers, then they are the restaurant at the airports, everything is lying shut. What do you do with that? So everybody has to go through that.
Now, this Reva Singh, who's the editor of Sommelier India, she has asked a very pertinent question, pertinent especially in the Indian context. Is home delivery an option? So, Chef, are you looking at a home delivery model, and do you think it will work in India?
I think it will work in India as long as you can get the delivery model right to either Uber Eats or Deliveroo or Swiggy, Zomato, whoever does it. I think that was already thriving a lot in India. So those businesses were thriving a lot. I'm talking the big cities. So Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai,
A lot
Pune,
of these
cities.
fine dining restaurants were avoiding home deliveries. Now they are all coming in. They're all coming into the business.
They have to. I mean, see, as restaurants into luxury hotels on fine dining, you wanted to cater for a certain segment of the market. That's totally gone right now.
Right.
So we used to anyway do a catering for homes and doing small functions at home for 12 people or 20 people or special menus. So that is now opening up into a lot more for people onto smaller numbers also. If somebody wants to have from a luxury hotel and they want to do restaurants or they want to do food, there will be options. People are going to look at options of doing deliveries at home or having experience of your restaurant into your own home as such in a smaller number. So I think you can't be picky and choosy and say, okay, I can do this and I cannot do that. You will take whatever comes your way and want to maximize. So that is, even though you are a top end or a fine dining, you will look at options of delivery. And this is not going to be just for a one-off. It's going to be a permanent feature now. Because as a model, if it works, why stop it? You are going to continue it. And there will be options because you want to maximize your revenues from those limited hours of operation of what you have. And trying to ensure you can generate more income. These home deliveries and experiences at home are going to go on the up for sure. And they should be. I mean, not just with food. If you can do that with the wine pairing and stuff and all that stuff, you can have beverages being supplied along with that if the government allows. Then that is an option, yes.
In fact, that is a big thing that has come up, that people want to discuss this in a very big way. Even the courts have taken notice of the general sentiment that home delivery of alcohol must be allowed in a post-COVID, and all the restrictions that are in place. Another question which has come from Mr. Keshav Rajput, what do you think will permanently change for the industry after post this pandemic?
I think that a lot is going to change. I think the entire mindset has to change in the first way. And I think right from the top end to the really lower end of price point of restaurants, they will be looking very seriously in terms of health and hygiene of how you're doing it. So, not just the 5-star hotels who are looking after it or the super standalone restaurant, but also the middle class, the simple restaurant and the normal stuff where the normal public is want to see that there is some sense of hygiene being done. So, your gloves, your covers and all the stuff, the way you produce food, the way you serve the food, that is going to be paramount and that is going to stay. Post 9/11, you could carry half a liter of water with you into a bottle into aircraft and nobody really bothered. And now it is now down to 100 ml. That's stayed now for so many years. So the good news that 20 years back or 10 years back, that's going to happen. So that's going to remain. So same thing with the COVID-19. There are going to be changes. There will be very stringent measures coming up around the world. That will never go. So I think your HACCP controls, your health and hygiene are going to be paramount. They are going to be very, very strict. I think even the municipalities in India will try and ensure wherever they are that they can enforce those laws. So now you go down to any market area, wherever in Delhi or Bombay, and then there would be checks. There should be checks around the clock.
So, health inspections will be very important now than before.
Yeah, I think in Europe and in the Middle East and in the US, you have these grading systems where you have 1, 2, 5, 5 being the best, and you have stars A, B, C, D, what it is. You are regularly checked constantly. Unannounced visits are done. They check. I mean, in our restaurant, in our hotel in Mandarin Oriental in Geneva, literally we have an outside company who would just walk into the restaurant or kitchen and they would do your nail swabs. They would check. Just to see what is the bacteria count, if it is any. And, then you actually issue letters of warning if something is not correct. So, there are measures there. And then people are scared, they get very cautious and then maintain a certain standard. These are all being done into this Western world, which are pretty advanced in many ways. And these policies are going to come down to our place in India at some stage where people are going to be very particular. And they should be particular. I always again, all the luxury top-end hotels follow the procedure, right from Oberoi Stars, ITC. they all do them, but they're going
Right.
to filter down to the lower models now.
Right, right. I think that is going to be the big change, absolutely big change. You know, were also Rajneesh Malik has asked a question. Will we see Chef Vineet Bhatia's DIY food kits? In fact, these DIY food kits have suddenly caught the fancy of the Indian market. Several restaurants have got into the fray. Do you see yourself doing DIY food kits?
I mean, it's an avenue which might happen in the future. At the moment, I think it is purely a case of survival right now, everywhere across the board. So I
Right.
think this COVID thing is not going to go off till 2022 fourth quarter, in my opinion. So another 2
Right.
years before you can get a sense of normalcy back into your lives. So I think
Oh.
the main focus now is trying to see what we can actually hold back from our side, and obviously look at various options down the line. You know, online is a big business to look at. Tutorials are a big business to look at. Deliveries are a big business. DIY kits are a business to look at. All this stuff, but there's a supply chain which goes along with that.
Right.
It is not just in the thought process, it's the entire supply chain where you have to get along and do the whole proposal and then make sure it works. Unfortunately,
Right.
sitting back in London, I can't do that in India. It
Right.
doesn't work.
Hmm.
And you know, my main forte is my restaurants.
Right.
These 11 restaurants are what I have to look after right now, and my team is like my family for me.
Right.
So that is my priority right now, is to ensure that the people I have are first looked after, and then down the line, 8 months, 10 months from now, you know, there are always things which we want to do and plan to do.
Right.
I mean, these are good times to sit and write notes and write recipes or write books. So that is always a process. You want to keep doing it.
So
But masses
you're
are
on
very
YouTube.
capitalized.
You're quite active on YouTube. You know, talking about what you are doing. Can you tell me, what is like a typical day in your life today?
A typical day, I mean, I don't know what day is today. Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? There is nothing, because they're all the same. So no, you can't say, okay, weekend day I can sit back and relax.
Right.
But our life, my life anyway, has been such, both my and Rashima, that we travel so extensively that we forget the day of the week. It is just a day.
Right.
So literally, it starts morning 8 o'clock. Then you actually get down.
Right.
And then you have your breakfast and stuff. Then you start going through your email, then your messages and all the stuff. So it builds up on that. Now, with our restaurants in the Middle East and in India with different time zones, you're a constant battle against deadlines.
Right.
Or on a time zones. So no, India is 4.5 hours ahead. Saudi is 3 hours ahead. Dubai is 3 hours ahead. Stuff like those. So you're always trying to fix up what time zones can you work on. So we don't have a pattern as such. It's a fixed schedule that I will get up at 8 o'clock and this is what I can do. I can't. So suddenly you have the chef or the manager calling up from Riyadh or from Jeddah saying, we have this sudden thing has come up that we need a task force to go to say other hotel to assist because they're having an issue. So what do we do? So our first thing is our team, is our protection for our team. So we put our foot down and said, we are not setting the team down because this is not our hotel. I will not take the risk. So then you're troubleshooting with the management, for example. Or something comes up and says, like, that we have now starting a model where we want to open the restaurant. How do we do? What do we do? So then we sit down with the team, phones or the chats, and say, okay, get this guy, this guy, this guy, get these 5 guys to come to work, get 4 guys on the service side to come to work and go through them. And then you suddenly get a call that's saying this guy has gone to India and he's having an issue with his family because he doesn't have financials. So what do you do? So no, then you need to get some kind of a fund arranged for him to go send him off to India because the guy hasn't got paid for the past 6-7 weeks because he's on vacation. And, you know, a lot of the people, out of all the staff we have, there's always a certain amount of people on vacation in India. So when you say 400-500 people work for us, we are probably at 70-80 on leave in India at one given time.
Right.
So no, they are stuck. They cannot come back, and because they are stuck in India, they're not getting paid.
Right.
So how do you get sources? How do you get funds for that?
Right.
So time goes into stuff like that. And also then we try stuff where we can do video tutorials at home. And like I said, the idea was more for the team to learn sometimes certain dishes. And we would do Skype chats for years. You know, we would always have a team having Skype cameras or things on, and we would do a live session with them to do tutorials from a distance. But now it's become a more regular affair. So we've taken that same module and also said, use those video tutorials for home during
Right.
quarantine and posting onto Instagram or putting it onto YouTube.
Right. Right.
Because then there is a lot of people who are sitting at home and you're watching your Insta pages. They always see you working around your restaurant and traveling wherever you go. They don't see the back of the house most times. So this is
Right.
an opportunity for them to actually invite them into your own house and show how do you have a kitchen setup done.
Right.
What is your spice box? How do you cook certain basic things? And
Right.
you'll be surprised that most people don't know the basic stuff. Literally,
Right.
they get stuck on basic stuff because they've got their wives doing it or their mom or their daughters cooking for them.
Right.
And because you're sitting at home and you've got nothing else to do, the first thing you do is you search the net or you watch a video and you want to get involved, which is good. So the
Right.
good thing with the COVID-19 is a lot of people across the world are actually spending time into learning to cook,
Right.
which I think is very positive.
Right.
It gives you an extra knowledge.
Right.
If you pick up a hobby, for instance,
And it
and you
seems
know,
like cooking
Russia
seems
was
like
very good in art and craft.
right. So I'm saying cooking seems to become the big thing, you know. Everyone is dabbling in cooking, you know.
So there was a very funny picture which came through WhatsApp. Most of us have must seen them in the round on WhatsApp. There's a huge line for queuing for people for MasterChef India for next season.
Because everyone is a
I think
master
so
chef.
long they all are sitting at home. So
Right.
everybody wants to become a master chef, which is good. You know,
Right.
it is nice because firstly they're educating themselves.
Right.
They're learning something different, and they're also
Right.
learning to respect an art.
Right.
Which is during our days in the early 80s was a struggle because nobody understood. And why do you want to go into a hotel school? Why do you want to learn to cook? Why do
Right.
you want to learn to be a service guy? Why do you want to make
Right.
beds or clean toilets in the hotel?
Right.
Now people actually respect that. So I think in some way there are always positives we have to take from this pandemic and say this has been to our advantage in many ways.
Mhm.
And you know, there's always something good that comes out of something bad,
Right.
and it's equilibrium. You know, it settles down at some stage. It will balance
Right.
out.
Right. Now, this Akash Day, you know, who's asking a very relevant question, you know. He says it is not easy to open a restaurant in a foreign country where we don't know anyone. So can you please tell me how chefs like you open so many restaurants worldwide? How does it work? How does it, how do you get the money and other support for such ventures?
I mean, this is 2020 right now. My first restaurant I opened up overseas was in 2001, 19 years back. So no, it doesn't happen overnight. I left India in 93. So the first restaurant I opened up was in 2001 outside India
And that's
or outside
the
even
year
London. So, you know,
and that's the year you got a Michelin star for
Yes.
what was it? Star of India?
no, Zyka.
Zyka. Zyka was the restaurant which got
It was,
your
it was
Michelin
Zyka.
star. Yeah.
Yeah, 2001 was when he got it. So the discussion for the restaurant was done before getting a Michelin star.
Right.
And wasn't a result of the Michelin star, but it was something already ongoing in discussion. The star came at the time. And the very first one was actually in Delhi, at the Manor
Right.
in New Friends.
Right. Right.
The very first one. Subsequently, then happened was Mauritius, and then came Dubai after that. So coming back to the question, I think it takes you a lot of time to establish yourself. Nothing happens overnight. I think you also gain confidence of the people around you, that they begin to trust. So they are very small, humble steps. You start on a gentle note, then you build on it. There is no formula. So if someone asks me, can you give me a SOP and say, how do you open the restaurant? Well, there is no SOP. Because each time you do a restaurant, there are issues of different kinds.
Right.
Every place is different, every restaurant is different, and every business has to be done, has to be bespoke. This is the way we
Right.
look at things. So they're all very much tailor-made. We only try and partner with businesses
Right.
which are established or who understand our ethos. What we don't have is our business card. We say, this is my business card for Vineet Bhatia. Can you open the restaurant? It doesn't work. We have only done restaurants. People have come to us and said, we like what you do. We trust what you do, and we would like to partner with you. We are very particular of who we partner or who we choose to do a business with. 90% of the times we refuse offers. We say we don't want to touch it because I don't want to
Right.
do a restaurant of 50 restaurants which I can't look after. So I'm happy doing 10 or 12, which
Right.
I know are going to sustain,
Hmm.
are going to perform well over the period of time.
And
Because opening a restaurant,
you're very personally involved with all restaurants. It's not like we're doing some remote control management.
no. I think when it comes to a restaurant, between Rashima and I, we travel to all the restaurants. We ensure that we train the team, we train them, and we make sure we deliver. And that is important for us, because at the end of the day, is our name on the board also. And it's a partnership, and partnership is like a marriage. It has to last. So you do whatever you can to make sure you are there. So even if you're not there physically on site, you always want to connect with your team through various modes, either through
Right.
telephone or WhatsApp or to Skype or Zoom or whatever. You're in a constant process with them that you are on touch. So if you look at my WhatsApp messaging, they're all the groups which are with all the restaurants. So you're on a constant thing with them on a daily basis. Ke aaj kya hua, kya nahi hua. So if there is an issue, you would want your service guys or the kitchen guys to communicate with you straight away, so you can solve it.
Right.
So that is part of our daily routine. So no day
Right.
for us is fixed. कि आज मेरा ये schedule है, ये मेरा routine है. There is no routine.
Right.
It changes. It literally changes
That's
with
the
the hour.
beauty. I think that's the beauty of the pitfall of the restaurant business. Everything is
It is.
hinges on unpredictability.
People think, oh, restaurants are very glamorous and it's a hospitality is a glamorous industry. Not at all. Ask all the people who are watching this who are in the industry, they'll tell you it's the most anti-social life you will ever have.
Right.
You could call it Christmas or Eid or Diwali, you're all working.
Right.
You're all working. Who's
Right.
enjoying are the guests.
Right.
But that is, you go in knowingly. When I
Right.
first joined, I went for an interview for my catering college, and the first thing the guy said, don't look at the weather, and don't look at the watch,
Right.
because you will not get time for all this stuff. Nahi hota. The third thing is your wife, because you don't get to see your wife also.
Three
So, that
W's.
is part and parcel of the business.
3 W's that are denied
That
in
is-
your life.
Yeah. The worst thing is you get plenty of wine, but that's a
Yeah,
for you. It's all to get to experience life.
And you cannot drink while on duty, At least now that is quite a strict rule.
You should not. No, you should never drink. I mean, I
Yeah.
never sat in my uniform in
Right.
my restaurant and have a
Right.
meal. I would never do that. I would never sit in my restaurant in my chef uniform with chef whites and sit and have a meal.
Right.
No, if I'm in a chef uniform, I'm in my kitchen or I'm on the
Right.
floor looking after my guest. If I'm
Right.
off duty, it's a different story. And I
Right,
would never
right.
stand with a glass of wine in my hand, because in uniform it's not professional. You should never do that. Certain ethics you have to follow.
Right. Great. Very good advice. For a lot of young people, who are listening in. They're mostly from hotel management colleges. Now, 2 questions. One, actually, the 3 questions which are quite interesting. One is from Ramesh Meghani. He has asked actually 2 questions. One is about does this pandemic and its fallout mean the end of fine dining in the world? And the second is, does it also mean that there will be a rise in vegetarianism or veganism, considering the scare it has created about non-vegetarian food?
On the second point, I would say the veganism and vegetarianism is on the rise for the past 7 to 8 years, and it'll keep on rising. Because that is, I think, the best option in this day and life is to have kind of food. I think it works extremely well. It's healthy. It's good for you. So that's probably going to rise. And I think India is very good at it, because it's got so much of depth of this kind of cuisine anyway, that it comes to us very naturally in terms of our restaurant cuisines. It works well. In terms of fine dining, certain amount of love affair you will always have with fine dining. Fine dining as such has always been on the decline, because the younger generation wants something which is much more fun, more interactive, more relaxed, more price sensitive. Fine dining comes with all the baggage of the extra and the cost and stuff like those. What will happen is they will be fine dining, but they will be much smaller in capacity, I would say. The days of opening a 120 cover restaurant, fine dining and all, are going to be very difficult. So they may cut down into a size of say 50 and 60.
Okay, 50 to 60, according to you, would be an optimum size for the fine dining restaurant.
I
And should it
think
run for both
fine
lunch
dining,
and dinner?
fine dining, 50-60 capacity restaurant open for lunch and dinner can work. It should
And
work.
the lunch,
Because then
lunch
there's a
would
very
be more of
personalized
a
service you can offer. It's a very personalized service you offer to the guest at that level. What is going to come out of all this stuff is people who are, I mean, we have been toying with the idea of fun, of fine dining, making more fun and relaxed, but still keeping a quality intact.
right.
So when you keep a quality intact, you do add some more elements on the tableware in terms of your crockery and a cutlery, make it more relaxed in a way, make it more colorful in a way, make it playful in a way. So there's more
Right.
interaction with your guest.
Right.
Not just piling of food into 6 things and making it a big tower and making it look nice and pretty. I think that's going to go because you want something quite easygoing.
Right.
People want to eat smaller portions, but they want to eat more diverse food.
Right.
They want more variety on the table.
Right.
So, you know, fine
Right.
dining, we're going to move into those angles there.
Right.
There will be restaurants which will do their 12-course tasting menu, 14-course tasting menu.
Right.
That charm, it will always exist.
Right.
So there will be a balance up.
Because, you know,
I mean,
I
there
think
will be
people
an
are always
experiential
looking for something
restaurant.
different. People are looking for an experience that they cannot
Yes.
get at home.
See, why do you go to restaurants?
Right.
You go to restaurants to get an experience.
Right.
You go to restaurants for escapism.
Right.
If you can make your same stuff at home, why would you want to go to a restaurant? You want to go because they offer you something else.
Right.
And that has always been our USP, by giving them an experience. So when you come to our restaurant and you leave back with one, say, a single happy memory, means I've done my job right.
Right.
That draws you back.
And you know what you
So
have
that
done
USP has to come through.
what you have done is just redefine Indian food. I mean, you know, without tinkering its flavors or its basic character, you've just made it as an experience, you know, sort of, isn't it?
I mean, you know, a maki dal is a maki dal. It is basically black urad dal, which is cooked with masala, the spices.
Right.
Now that everybody can make and enjoy, and it's fantastic on its own with a bowl. The paratha it works well. But who stopped you from making that maki dal into a little kofta and serving it with some gravy? Or
Right.
who stopped you from making that maki dal and reducing it down or using certain parts of the dal as a marinade for a chicken tikka or a paneer tikka, for example?
Right.
You still get the flavors in, but you're
Right.
thinking outside the box. And
That's
what's going
right.
to happen with this thing when you're going to come back from the COVID-19 and the restaurants are going to open back?
Right.
There will be a mindset change of people there. That you want to attract people into your restaurant. How do you get them back? So you
And
will
then
have to look at
experience,
options on your
yeah.
offerings on a menu which are different and experience
Right.
there. But you'll have to
So-
be very sensitive with your pricing.
Right.
Because your
Right.
pricing is going to be very, very crucial now.
Yeah. So now that brings me to a question of from Keshav Raut. You know, I had, I think, wrongly mentioned him as Keshav Rajput in the previous question that he had raised. Now, Mr. Raut says, considering the customer has to risk so much to eat out, despite safety measures being taken, it is evident that volumes are going to take a huge hit in the future. Do you think tough times are here to stay for the industry? Also, how is the industry planning to tackle this situation?
See, this, the whole thing, you will only get your normalcy back, not before 2022 end. You will not get, you are going to struggle. So what is going to happen is, the people who are going to be most affected in this whole in the industry are people who are standalone and who have to have a rent to pay, who got overheads to pay. They are, see, normally when you do a restaurant, it's a known fact that 20% of restaurants shut in the first year.
Right.
They close. Now, what are people who survive? 80% of restaurants don't even last more than 5 years. They close down.
Right.
And
So
very few,
those-
20% actually survive for a very long time.
So how
So no, you have to have either a deep-pocketed bank to help you out, or a sugar daddy to help you out,
Right.
or if you take a hotel has got its fixed overheads. It's got a restaurant. There's no rents being paid there, so they can still sustain and hold on for a little longer.
Right.
They'll have to be more price sensitive and try and get the people back in with their price policies or their offerings or
Right.
whatever they can do in terms of your guest experience and make it
Right.
lucrative for them to come and have. The numbers are going to go down. We all know
Right.
that. I mean, the numbers have gone down for us in London. They dropped from 100% back to 20% in a matter of weeks.
Oh, really?
Literally a couple of weeks, we dropped down 20%. Yeah, you
That
dropped.
is before
So
the
there was,
lockdown.
when the lockdown,
before
before lockdown, when the pandemic was done, when they were announced that there's going to be all the coronavirus and all the stuff, I mean, we were rocking at Harrods in London, and suddenly the flights stopped coming in. There are no Arabic guests coming in. There are no Americans coming into Harrods. It's a tourist area. There are no tourists coming in. So you drop down entirely from doing 150, 160 covers a day down to doing what, 40 covers a day?
Right.
42 covers a day. So it happens. Now, when there's no passengers coming into a place like London, a tourist coming in, and you're a destination restaurant for tourists, there's no footfall coming into your restaurants.
Right.
So how are you going to feed them up?
Right.
It is going to stay. The same thing applies to India. There is no internal flights, Bombay, Delhi, or people traveling anyway. There's no businesses. There are no people going to offices on the mall or next to the mall. So who's going to come down to your restaurant to come and eat in the restaurant? They're all going to struggle. And with social distancing, your capacity for restaurants cuts down to literally 50% pre-opening.
Right.
So if you're 100-seater restaurant, you're down to 50 seats. If you're 50 seats operating, your optimum capacity from that is 75%.
Right.
So you're only doing 38, 37 seats
So,
at one given time.
you're down to 40%, You're down to 40% of
You are
time.
losing. So you, as a restaurateur or a part of the industry, you got to negotiate your rents again with your landlords. Can you manage? You need to do a less amount of people on board. You got to cut down your cost overhead. You got to try and save money into your overheads, your food costs and stuff like those. So you will all have to cut corners somewhere. Everybody has to do that.
How do you cut
across the board.
costs? How do you cut food costs in a situation like this?
You cut down on the heavy items, cut down on the expensive items.
So that would
you
mean
have
in
to
the
see
case of
what
India,
doesn't cost much.
in the case of India, a lot of the imported wines, imported cheeses, all these will go out of the window. People will not import them. I mean, because they're definitely more expensive than what is available locally.
In the good old days, you go down to a buffet and you have a cheese spread there and all that stuff, and some of it is used and not used. Some of it goes rancid and goes off. So no, that is going to change. You all look at wastage, how to save money and cut your costs down.
Right.
So no, what are you stocking with your
and
wines? What are imported products?
Buffets will be a casualty of the post-COVID-19 market?
Sorry, come again?
Do you think buffets will be a casualty in the post-COVID-19 market?
See, buffets are a very tricky area to eat,
Right.
especially because you are handling food as a guest. You are going and picking up forks and knives and tongs you're picking up. Now, in our hotel in Dubai, we have a buffet restaurant. So what we do in the buffet restaurant, we stop putting forks and knives on the table. All we do is small portions of small little bowls, ramekin bowls, or small bowls of small tiny portions. So a little like a tapas. You can go and pick up that thing.
I believe it's known as the flying buffet. The concept is known as the flying buffet. I mean, in the sense that you can just pick up what you want and go.
Pick up tiny portions of food. So all those big bowls of salads, you can go and pick your tongs and all that stuff because you want minimum contact. But you got to remember that once till you do not get a vaccine, you're going to struggle big time. And even after vaccine coming on board, you will still have people who are very cautious. And so you have to rethink the entire model of taking a buffet into doing like certain parts are cold, are kept into small quantities, and the hot food is delivered to you on your table from the kitchen fresh. So that would be, it would be limited. Offerings might be cut down.
Do you think, alcohol menus, especially wine menus, will see a major paring down?
Bar-led restaurants, nightclubs are going to have the most impact because there you could pack in 600 people on a night, dancing away all evening on close proximity and drinking and eating. That is going to get hit. I don't think the government is going to allow that straight away to start off.
Nightclubs will have to change lounges.
That's the breeding ground for it to spread more. So they will look at it very carefully of not allowing those kind of gatherings. They've already announced it in the UK here that not more than 4 on a table.
Oh, really? In bars?
And then a 2-meter distance.
Right.
4 on a table in F&B. I mean, they are saying that although the lockdown is slightly easing off in some way, they have said that the total lockdown for restaurant industry and pubs and bars is not going to come off till August 10 or even September at the moment. It can get even delayed. I don't foresee it opening up before November in UK at all.
Right.
And I don't really foresee in India to open up all the restaurants and bars in July. And lockdown is extended for 2 more weeks. I think it's going to go on for a lot longer.
Right. No, of course.
You have to remember, people who are from the big cities have now moved on and gone to their small towns. So the small towns and the villages who are totally untouched with the pandemic and the virus are now going to get it.
Right.
So it will spread. Now, even if you unlock the whole thing and you open up the industry and get people to open up and operate, you need a task force. Where is the task force? They've all gone back to their towns. For them to travel back, all the people who are the migrants, you see them on the news and the issues of traveling to Bihar and Patna to Andhra Pradesh, they're struggling to get back. There's not enough food for them on the way.
And there's no social
How do you expect them to
distancing.
come back?
There's no social distancing. There's nothing. You know, they're really left out. Really to battle
The casual workers have got the most hit, sadly.
Yeah.
And they are the ones who are not able to survive.
And they're the ones who are
I think
actually
watching.
they're the lifeblood of any industry, and they're suffering the most today.
We are okay. We're in the luxury of sitting here onto a Zoom and having a conference and giving all the gam. For all the people who are actually traveling on the foot and going back or traveling into ST buses, they don't have the cash. They don't have the funds. They struggle on a daily basis. How are they going to manage?
Right. Now, it again gets me back to Reva Singh. She has a question, and that is, this whole, there is going to be obviously a big drop in the number of customers, you're looking at, in the best case scenario, about 40% occupancy, Now, in such a scenario, would there be any incentive for you to upgrade your menu or change your menu? You'll say, yaar, jo ho raha hai, wahi hone do, bekar mein, why do you work so much for so little, Will that sense ever come into you?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to change the whole mindset. I mean, the offerings on the menu will change. Then look at it more carefully as how much can you actually protect your restaurant. It is purely a question of survival now. So when you question survival, you look at all your costs, you look at ingredients, you look at profit margins, you look at stuff, how you can deliver, you look at your service method, you look at your offerings to the guest, you look at the guest experience. So when someone walks into a restaurant, is given a warm towel or a cold towel and you do that, that is out of the window. But that's the last thing you want to start doing now because of all this virus issue. So all those kind of things which are unnecessary are going to be out. And all that little pennies are going to cost you savings there.
No, look
at manning very carefully.
Yeah. But I can't get over the fact that a fine dining restaurant serving food in disposable crockery now, how does it, how do the audience, how do your guests react to it? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
How do your guests react to the fact, say, a fine dining restaurant serving your food in disposable crockery?
At the moment, there are no options. So they're okay.
Right.
But once that lockdown is lifted, we will revert back to our ceramics.
Okay. Right.
So that will come back. It will come back. It's not a permanent issue. It is just to ensure that, you have to be seen as doing something positive for their safety.
Right.
And these are the measures you want to do it now to ensure that you can actually be seen physically, visually. This is what you get to see. I'm not saying that everything goes into a disposable way. Some will still go into ceramics and stuff like those, but it is bare minimum. So coming back to the question from the young lady, the question was, there will be a shift in the mindset. There will be a shift in the approach for your offerings in terms of a beverage offering, in terms of your food offering. There is going to be a shift. There may be a case that the menus are much more shortened and they change more frequently, for example. So there is less wastage.
Yeah. So Zorawar Singh,
so you still keep your
Zorawar Singh asked this question that taking a hit financially, guests and owners, they both will take a hit financially, yes, because of the COVID pandemic. Do you think we need to be more price sensitive to survive? Also, where does the comfort food fit in when we see fine dining struggling. So is it going to be more comfort food than fine dining, or a mix of both?
It'll be more price sensitive now.
No.
It'll be a lot more price sensitive. A lot of restaurants which are at a higher price point will actually
Right.
evaluate the prices and bring it down, where you can actually open up for a lot more people to come in. So
Right.
there will be a price war.
Do you see yourself bringing down prices?
Yes,
See,
we
when
have
your
to.
restaurant, okay.
Absolutely.
And I mean, do you have a ballpark figure? How much do you intend to bring down the prices?
I think it will be a minimum of 20% drop. Minimum.
Wow. Okay.
It will be. It has to.
I mean,
We will have to drop it down.
if there's a headline point from your discussion today, it has come now that you're going to drop down prices by 20% to get people back. You know? But that's the
No,
reality.
you have to do that because you have to be able to see that you're doing something towards for your guests to come back. So
Right.
pricing is the most important thing. Your
Because as
menu has to be
Zoravar Singh,
structured accordingly.
yeah, as Zoravar Singh rightly points out, I mean, okay, the restaurants have been hit, but so consumers also have suffered financially in these 2 months. You know, not that people are having a party really. You know, so,
No, I mean everybody has struggled. You know what's going to happen is the people at the lower price point of restaurants,
Right.
they would probably have to be a little more careful of what they want to offer because, like you say, comfort food is important. It is
right,
the thing which they want to eat on a daily basis. So the
Right.
guy who's serving a very nice dosa,
right,
you know, that's his staple food. What he serves, a good quality
Right.
dosa and a chutney and sambar. So
Right.
even he will think very carefully. If I'm charging around $100, can I give it for 85 or 90?
right, right,
Yeah, you know, he will think of some module where
Right.
he can also attract his people in. So the
Right.
consumer will benefit from it. Definitely, the consumer should
Right.
benefit. There will be a
Right.
balance which you strike somewhere with everybody.
right. True,
Balance has to come through your internal of what you are offering.
right,
You know, a guy selling a bhelpuri or a vada pav for
Right.
20, 25 bucks might bring it down to a certain value. You
right,
might cut the portion size down. So what happens is when you cut the prices down,
Right.
you also cut the portion size down. I mean, I remember as a child, you could go to outside and get a Parle-G biscuit for this bigger packet.
right,
Now you get it which is this smaller packet.
yeah, yeah. The 10
You can't-
rupee,
it works.
the Parle-G 10 rupee packets.
Yeah, so look, this is what you have to do. You will have to think of that kind of a module where you will have to be sensible. Because the
Right.
question now is that you need to be able to survive in this kind of a situation. What do you do?
So price
Last thing you want to
sensitive.
think is close down.
So price sensitive to be sensible, you know, basically, you know.
Say for an airlines, for example, you're charging an X amount of money, 10,000 rupees a flight from Bombay to Delhi, and
Right,
you're
right.
not getting any passengers, and you need to fill up the seats. What do? You put the price
Right.
down.
Exactly,
You
exactly.
pack them in.
Yeah,
But you know, with airline become difficult with social distancing because you can't pack them in.
right, right.
So
Exactly.
where do you stop? So
Right.
these certain of these measures are probably going to be government control. A lot of
Right.
these restaurant industry and all the stuff are going to be pretty much a hit. I mean, you have wine stocks lying inside which are not sold off for a while. You know, you need to
Right.
get rid of stock. What do? You offer them a better value. So there will be
Right.
deals coming through. There will be
Right.
competition coming through. Value for money is
So
going to be
I
important.
guess,
And now it will be more important because you have to open mind.
so people in the wine, I mean, people who are in the business of selling wine in their restaurants, they will have to get prices down to sensible levels. In India, that's always been a problem.
The problem with India is the taxation is so high that whatever we get into India and also the Middle East, the taxes are so heavy for the alcohol because it becomes really out of reach for normal Panjanta.
Right, right,
So they go to a wine shop and buy some liquor and they buy some other stuff. But if you want to enjoy a good bottle of wine,
Right.
unfortunately, it is very expensive. But what's going to happen is even the top end hotel will try and do some kind of a structure on the wines where it becomes a bit more lucrative for the buyers. Or the
Right.
cocktail offerings, for example. So, you know, they may not end up using the premium products for the cocktail offering. They might either downgrade the vodka to a certain vodka, which is a certain value.
right.
But that is what you don't see. So, you know, you would not use expensive gin or a vodka into a cocktail, you use a simpler one and get
Right.
certain value to the guest.
So do you think in the light of all this, say in India, Indian products, Indian alcohol, Indian food products, they will finally be discovered. They'll finally find the place in the sun. Do you see that happening?
I hope so because, you know, we all champion to say that try and do as much as less carbon footprint in your own country. Try
Right.
to things which are around the area. Sadly, the problem with us Indians is we look at the Western world and we try and copy them and try and
Right.
get imported stuff. We forget to see what we have. You know, it is so silly that you need a Starbucks to do haldi wala latte So we've been having haldi wala doodh for years in India. But you need somebody sitting in California to design it for you.
Yeah,
And it's
turmeric
probably an
latte.
Indian.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, you got your super grains. Dunya is pagal over chia seeds and quinoa, but you got your bajra and jowar and all the stuff. You got super grain and they own you don't even utilize.
Right.
So I'm happy in a way because in the past 3 to 4 years, that's what we've been doing at Zia at Oberoi Bombay, trying to use local produce.
Right. Right.
Cut down as much as possible and try to use as much of local produce you can. So cut down your imported intake of products. Try and do what you have. Is something as part of luxury hotel.
At Zia, what percentage of your food is imported?
Currently, when we're closing up, the only imported thing onto our menu was lamb chop.
That's right. That's
We
amazing.
had the salmon on the menu, we took it off. So we took off the salmon because we wanted to get as minimum carbon footprint.
Right.
So one thing is the lamb, I have an issue with the Indian lamb chop because of the eye is Chinese, so we use the imported one. Other than that, everything is local. Our fish comes from Kochi or from West Bengal side, and everything is local around us. We don't import.
So you were talking about Zia. Are you planning, when it opens, hopefully by July end or August? Do you have plans for that? Are we going to see something new and different happening there?
Zia was supposed to go into actually a refit this year. It's been 10 years. So Zia was supposed to go in for a refit. But again, because of this COVID-19, everything is on the back burner because nothing is going to be touched now. So we all have to be very sensitive of how we're going to be spending any money anywhere. So, renovations are out of the picture. We look at reopening up with a slight tweak in the menu, more adjusted to suit the manpower we can actually get. Till we don't open up, we will not know how many people can actually come on board to work. So you need at least a week before the opening to plan to see agle hafte kholne wale hai, so how do we plan? What is the manpower? What is the situation? Are the trains running? Are the buses running? Can people come to work? They can't come to work. Based on that, you will do a menu. So it will probably be a shorter menu like we do in all places. You literally open up onto a 40% capacity menu and gently welcome whoever comes in. So there's no mad rush. Also, the staff has to be trained again, in many ways. Social distancing. So every hotel will have its own policy of what you have to follow. So that will have to be taken care of and then get the thing. And also got to remember, are the public warm and receptive to coming outside and dining regularly? They're also very cautious.
That's right.
They will not be a door khol liya and you're a full house. You would still with the social distancing, if ZI is 70 odd seats, you are down to the 49, 48 seats capacity. So from that, if you're lucky, you would do 35, 40 seats a night.
Right. Exactly.
For example.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
that is, I think every restaurateur will have to do that mathematics.
Everybody has to
get that mathematics right,
The last thing is you want to open the restaurant and you are not able to handle it. The virus spreads back again. So that's why I think the government also being cautious that you don't want to open up and have a relapse of the virus.
That's
so
right.
If that thing happens, Europe is anyway in a recession right now.
Right.
It's been declared in recession. UK has got very badly hit, and so has all over Europe. In fact, across the world, everybody got it. For example, our restaurant in Harrods in London. 90% of our guests who came to us were overseas. They were Chinese, they were Japanese, they were Americans, and Middle Eastern guests. There are no flights coming in the UK. East Coast of America was so badly hit with New York with 20,000 deaths that you will not have the New Yorkers flying into London for the next 1 year. Where the guests going to come from? The Chinese are not going to fly in. The Arabs are not flying in. There are no airlines coming in. A simple thing. Emirates used to have 11 flights a day on a 380. And a 380 has got 600 passengers. And you could not seat inside. It used to be packed. Now they're saying we will fly every alternate day with 2 flights a day. They are going to, when they open up, they will operate on maybe a 10% operation. When there are no passengers coming into the city, in London, how are you going to fill seats in?
Exactly.
So that's where your model of delivery comes into picture. So your Deliveroo, your Uber Eats, your delivery method, that kicks in.
And again, Zorawar Singh asked this interesting question. Do you think, your eat and eat meals bearing the stamp of Vineet Bhatia or your restaurants, do you think these will pick up?
We don't have that thing right now. We don't have
Right.
a
Eat and
DIY
eat.
kit, or we don't have
Right.
a takeaway as such module as such, because we
Right.
never really gone into that. We used to do it. The people come and take it from us. So no, we are
Right.
also actively looking at delivering into your home. So our restaurant in Qatar, or into Bahrain, or into Middle East, even a place like Geneva, when we open up Geneva at the Man Oriental, we are
Right.
only doing a takeout model right now,
Right.
because we
Right.
don't want people coming in. But it
Right.
is a gentle step you have to take towards it. So
Right.
obviously we are going to gear up for that kind of a module, where you will
Right.
have food from our restaurant being able to pick up or to be delivered. That is an
Right.
option we will do, which we were not really thought of in a big manner
Mm.
6 months ago.
Right.
But now, because of what is happening, you are rethinking in your own mind of
Right.
how can I actually get people in, or how
Right.
can we get revenues in.
Like, yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to,
If you can't get people in, at least you can get money in.
yeah, I mean, if you look at it, of
Delivery.
all the manpower, 20% of our manpower in the restaurants are already on vacation back in India.
Right.
So they will not be able to come to work for the next
Right.
maybe 3 to 4 months.
Right. Right.
With that 80% capacity, with your manpower or whatever you
Right.
have to operate your units.
Right.
So your offerings change, your
Right.
service sequences will change.
Right.
Obviously,
Right.
the number of people coming in will change.
Right.
Your hours of operation will change.
Right.
All that the capacity changes.
Right.
So there are not many factors which you have to now look into, which you would not have done probably sitting in last December and thinking everything is hunky dory.
Right. Exactly. Last December, everyone was so gung ho.
Yeah,
I think
I
we
mean,
had a great
it was buoyant.
2019.
I was in India then filming for MasterChef, and the market was buoyant. I mean, I left
Right.
in the Feb and it was all fine in India.
Right.
It was all,
And then just collapsed.
and end of March it hits you.
I still, by the way, I loved your outfits on my MasterChef India. I think you really brought color and spectacle to the show. And
I think the viewers needed to have extra goggles on to watch us. Three of us on camera there. They're very bright, but that is India for you. They like that brightness and the sharpness of the colors.
right.
It's colors which we normally wear back in our normal routine. But I think television is, and I think you got to realize that most of the people who are actually watching these kind of TV shows are not from the top cities. They're more from the rural cities.
Right.
So it's just a bit more over dramatic with the colors and the stuff. And that is what pleases them. Its audience is different. When we shot Netflix US, the Netflix were very different. It was very professional chefs doing it. So it was a very different kind of setup. So when you do MasterChef India, which I must say was very enjoyable, I really enjoyed it. It's a different kind of chef's hat you wear while doing that.
Right.
But the reach is phenomenal. The reach of MasterChef India was phenomenal.
I mean, it's so good that you were one of the judges, one of the presenters, because that suddenly people should know more about you. I think you've done so much for India without, drumming that fact or, blowing your own horn. I think it's time India recognize you and give you the honor you deserve.
I mean, we left India in '93, but that doesn't mean we have quit India. We're still attached to India in many ways.
Attached in such a big way.
I come back to India 7-8 times a year for work and meeting my family back in Bombay. So the Hindustaniness doesn't ever go. Your love for India will never go. And wherever I can travel internationally, we fly the flag for India in all the seminars and the gourmet summits and whatever we do, we try and showcase Indian food at probably the highest level. I mean, right from Mount Everest to go down to Antarctica, we were showcasing Indian food. And that's always been our case with us, that we wanted to, because we struggled in many ways where we were put off and told you the third world cuisine and nobody likes it and it's not recognized. And then you have to fight against it and try and prove yourself.
Right.
That's what we do. Internationally, we do seminars, we do our guest appearances and chefs and all that stuff just to ensure that, you can showcase Indian food to the right audience. And it's education.
So, Chef, we're very privileged to have you, Chef Vineet Bhatia. Now, I really look forward to the time when the lockdown is lifted and you can touch down in Delhi and Mumbai. It's always a pleasure to have you. And Rashima, please give my regards to Rashima. She's,
I
as I
will.
keep saying, she's the boss of the house and of
Yes.
the business.
She is the mother behind my brand. Rashima
yeah,
is the
exactly.
one behind the brand, Vineet Bhatia. I'm just a smiling face for the camera.
yeah, you need someone as smilingly tough as Rashima to be behind the scenes, you know.
She's fair.
Yeah,
She is fair.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's how it should be. And you know, it's such good. It's an honor to have you with us. Tiffin Talks is privileged to have you. Now, just as I was giving my sign-off line, one quick. You have to add one quick line because it comes from my friend Reva Singh. Do you think fine wine dinners will be possible at home?
Yes, why not?
So
Everything is possible in life.
fine wine won't go out of life.
Never. Fine things will never go out of life. There will always be a market for fine things in life. And I think what is most important is that we have a very clean mindset. And we are very open to things around us. And as long as we're open to things around us, we will survive. We have to survive.
I think that's a very positive note to end today's session. Chef, all the best. May you do even better than you did before lockdown. And till lockdown continues, keep putting up your lovely videos on YouTube. I love the one with chicken tikka burger. I thought that was fantastic.
My favorite one was on the Instagram, which was the crunchy sandwich.
Oh yeah, crunchy sandwich is amazing. Yeah,
it was simple one, but and the best part is a lot of people watch you on the Instagram and or YouTube, and they actually try it at home. So the amount of DMs I get saying I have tried this, and sometimes I really can't cope and reply to all, so I do apologize. Do send them, but that is one option of showcasing our love is through our food.
So in today's discussion, two requests had come up. One, to do some really great chicken dish which students at the DY Patil Institute of Hotel Management can follow. And the other one which I hadn't mentioned earlier, it was about the white makhni gravy, you know. How do you make it? I think there's a demand for it. I guess whenever you do your next Instagram or YouTube video, please keep these two requests in mind.
I will do that.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you so much, Chef. Pawan,
thank you.
Over to you, Pawan Hora.
Thank you so much, Savarish sir. Thank you so much, Chef Vineet Bhatia. I believe this session was badly needed, not just for people who are who are from the industry, but believe me, there were lots of gourmands who joined us today and who asked some really, really interesting questions about their own plight, in terms of eating out and how they should see the world in the coming days. But thank you so much for such an insightful session. I think we're getting some really, really good messages. I'm sure my inbox and our mailbox will be clogged as well. And thank you to everybody who could join us today and attended this session and be a part of this beautiful discussion between Savarish and Chef Vineet. We will be putting this on our YouTube channel as well, and a mail will be coming to you from Tiffin Talks very, very shortly. And stay tuned. We will keep you informed for the next session very, very soon. Thank you so much. Over and out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.